another episode of Inquiring Minds. I am Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is my amazing co-host, Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you today?
I'm great, actually. The sun is shining. It's beautiful, and I can't wait to dive in to this conversation with you because I think that it's going to stimulate a lot of conversation with our readers. So looking forward.
Yeah, I do too. So what are we talking about?
Don't you love when I just put you on the spot? Okay, so
No, I
it's
do
a
not at all.
yeah, um, it's a quote that I read that I think is a great conversation starter. So, what you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create.
Yeah,
I love that because, boy, you walk into a room and you see somebody feeling crummy. You could see it on their face, you could hear it
yeah,
in their tone of voice, and you attract that style or framing of conversation right back.
yeah,
So if you're met with sarcasm, you're going to throw sarcasm right back. Let's face it, you get what you give.
yeah.
And that's pretty much what this means. What you think you become. I really like that. We talked in previous episode. I think it was a Ford quote, Henry Ford quote,
Mm-hmm.
something about
Yeah, it was.
if you
Yeah,
think you can't, you won't, like
yeah.
something like that. And if
If
you
you
think
think you
you can,
can or you
you will.
think you can't, you're right.
You're right. That's right.
Yeah,
Something like that. And that's what this is, right?
yeah.
If you think what you think you become and what you imagine you create.
Well,
And I
it's a
want to
powerful
hear,
statement, right? Because at the
yeah,
end of the day, it's like what I talk about with the ripple, right? Every action has a reaction, right?
yeah,
And science says it's a negative reaction. I look at it differently, right? So if you walk around, uh, with sort of the gray cloud of doom and gloom, and you're kind of a curmudgeon, the world seems to throw more curmudgeons in your path, right? But when you walk around, you're open, you're approachable, you look like somebody that somebody wants to have a conversation with. Well, guess what? More of those people fall in your path as well. And so everything has a reaction. And exactly like you said, if we're thinking about what we want to become, we can become it. If we, that we internalize these things, both positive and negative, they eventually end up coming true.
I love that word curmudgeon. Thank you for sharing that word. That's a cool word.
Yeah. It's
That's going to
it's
stick
a,
in
it,
the back of
it's
my
my
mind.
it's my go-to word instead of saying you're a grumpy pants.
So there's two stories I want to share with you briefly. One is a story about sitting on a plane, and I guess I was with Michael at the time, my son, and he says, like, you attract people like a magnet. What is with that? I said, your face is in a book. My face is watching people. And I was talking to, like, a little bit later, I was talking to one of my bonus daughters, Rebecca, and she said to me, what is with you? You get on a plane and you make 15 friends before you land that you stay in touch with. Me, nobody comes over to talk to me. Nobody. I said, it's all about your demeanor.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you are thinking, oh, there must be, some really interesting people here, and people will nod to you and you'll say, hey, how you doing? And they'll answer, and then you'll find an opportunity to have another conversation with them. I met some great people in the gate area in between flights with people who were on the same flight coming and then going.
Yep.
And I actually ended up with two clients in the military because of that conversation. They were just so intrigued. That's not why I do it, obviously. I'm just fascinated with people. It's the same thing with, being able to see a connection. And I want to hear some of your stories before I share the second one with you about it's a mindfulness exercise that brings this to the fore. But I wonder if you've had that experience that you're just thinking something and all of a sudden it starts coming your way.
Yeah, well, it's funny timing because I'm putting some finishing touches to a Ripple course that I'm going to be doing for our Ripple membership and in some other capacities. And one of the things that I am talking about is your mental game. And I actually use a little exercise that I talk about where we have the mirror conversation every morning. You have to be committed. to getting out there. For me, I have to remind myself that I've got to be committed to get out there, kick myself in the hindquarters to engage people, because if left to my own devices, being shy and introverted, I won't start a conversation. And so I play this kind of approach in terms of who am I going to make an impact on today? What am I going to do to make a difference in the world, either through my words or my actions? But I'm committed to doing it, right? So I have that psych up conversation every morning, and because I set my mindset in such a way to do that, things just come to me. I was playing football with the boys the other day, and we were just out in the front yard having a good time. And you know, I'm old now, so I catch like every third ball. Right? They throw hard. It hurts when you get older. And I drop the ball, but the ball bounces back, and they're like, it always does that. And I said, life has a way of working out for me, right? Life is working out for me. You have that. It's about an attitude, and when you have that attitude, it really does. I remember my early days as an entrepreneur. It was doom and gloom, worried about payroll, worried about who was quitting or how I was ever going to make that next sale. And things just kept getting worse, right? But when I made that switch, when I put my attention and my focus on what better positive outcomes I wanted to come into my life, it was amazing how I attracted that. And so, yeah, life has this tendency to work out because I am mentally preparing myself to go out there and make it so. And so that's been my custom for a long time. So thinking about your plane conversations, right? I don't impact 15 people. I don't know how you get around doing that, but I mean, good for you. But I will make and strike up conversations with people at the gates. And then when we get seated, it's always funny to have made those connections while you're waiting to board. And then as people board, they're like, hey, good to see you again, or I really enjoyed our conversation. And of course, the people that sit next to you, I always try to at least, you've got to be respectful, because that's their space. They just want to get to a destination. But I have a question that I try to, a ripple connection question, go figure, right? That I always ask. So we're going to, we're going to Charlotte, or we're going to Atlanta, or wherever we're headed. Where would you rather be going than there? And that always gets a rise out of somebody. They always smile. They always, oh yeah, rather go to the Bahamas, or I'd, rather be going to Europe. And that generally gets people to come out of their shell a little bit and have a conversation. And it just kind of shows that, you're not the average person they would sit next to. And those situations have opened up so many great conversations. Like you said, it's materialized in business for me, speaking opportunities, coaching clients, and some really good friends.
That's it. You look at what your outlook is what you're going to be attracting. There's no question.
Yep.
And I love that question. Where would you rather be going? It reminds me of Candy Chang, who was one of the TED Fellows that we worked with at the Collaboratorium. She did this cool thing. There was this dilapidated building in New Orleans that
Mm,
she completely covered with chalkboard paper, and they had these huge chunky pieces of chalk in buckets all around this building. And she like her first project was, before I die, I want to, or I wish I could.
yep.
And then people would write all over this building what they wanted. And then she realized there's so many dilapidated buildings in New Orleans. What if she engaged the community in saying what they wanted in the place of this boarded
Wow.
up building? So she did the same thing. She surrounded it with chalkboard paper and said, started off like in paint on the chalkboard paper, I wish this was. And
Oh, that's
people said what
great.
they wanted there to be in that space, and people who lived in that community. And they actually paid attention, the city planners, to what was on that. I mean, some use their sense of humor saying a beach, things like that. But it was a library with a cafe, or a bookshop with a cafe combined, or the place for our kids to go after school, or like all these wonderful suggestions.
Yeah,
They actually combined a couple of them, and they recreated the space
that's
in a
phenomenal.
place that the community wanted. And what you're doing is you're engaging people to think outside their immediate thoughts, and you're also attracting the interest of that individual by them thinking, "Whoa, this person isn't just saying, 'Hey, how you doing?' they're actually asking for me to think and respond in a certain way.
Yeah. Well, and it's
And
so rare for us, right? In the world and in society, that question is, "Oh, how you doing?" And nobody's really paying attention to what, they're not looking at you when they ask it. That, you walk up to the cashier at the grocery store or at barista that's making your coffee, and we feel like we're making casual conversation, but we've lost the art of really caring about what the answer is. And so it makes
yeah,
the question just redundant. No, nobody cares, right? So you have to step out of your box and do something different. And that's what I liked about what your story about New Orleans was, in terms of looking at this as, instead of a dilapidated, building, an opportunity to engage in conversation or in group think about what this property or this, facility could become, or just getting people in the community to say, hey, before I die, I wish I was, or I wish I did, or I accomplished this. And those things have such a huge impact, and they are literal game changers that most people just don't recognize. And it's so important. I remember when I was CEO of a email security company, I went out of my way to find a quote that I thought would sort of really fit where we were, what we were doing at the time. But I put the quote and I said, I want everybody to put how this makes them feel, or what their observation about it was, or what their 2 cents or your 3 cents, right, about it. And what it ended up being was this great thing that started on Monday that ended up turning into conversations when we brought in tacos on Thursday, Taco Thursday, to actually have conversations about that. Where'd you find the quote? What inspired you about the quote? What everybody had put on the board. And it was this natural evolution to say, hey, look, I'm interested in what you have to say. And I see you for when you do say it, right? When you share it. And I think that is something that is so critical that that skill set is not encouraged nearly enough.
we almost never know the impact of what these side conversations bring to somebody's life. We absolutely don't.
Yeah.
We have no idea that we might have been the only person to have a kind word with that individual all day.
Yeah.
And most of the time, yeah, really, I think most of the time we don't come across them again. In the
Yeah.
workplace, it's something different. What if we attracted that, like, in a mindfulness exercise, just to nod to people as they're coming the other way and greeting you? There are two quick stories that I want to share about that. One is, um, we have a Chinatown here, and there's a very well-known restaurant in Chinatown. It's one of the biggest ones, called Yangtze, and we used to go there often because the food was really, really good, and we could usually get a table, not one of those tiny little places. And there's a homeless person that would always be on that corner, and he was a little bit belligerent, so people were a little bit worried, and they would sort of go around the
Hmm.
block to come in the different ways because he was on the corner. And I stopped to talk to him one day and just to ask him, how is your day going, and what amazing thing happened to you today? And I said, before you say nothing, if you're going to say nothing, think and look at what amazing thing happened. And he was shocked that I talked to him, because people, like, they spit on him and they told him to get
Oh,
lost, and like, he really was troubled in many ways. Fast forward about 3 weeks later, I was meeting a group of friends there for dinner on a Saturday night, and none of them would park anywhere near that corner. There was always parking spots because they were afraid that he would vandalize their cars. And I parked right in front of the front door. And one of my friends said, "Are you out of your mind?" So I said, "Absolutely not." And he looked at me and he said, "What was the best part of your day?" And I told him, I said, "The best part of my day is that you're asking me that question, that you
yeah.
remembered it."
That's awesome.
And he said to me, "I will watch your car and make sure nobody goes near it so it stays safe." I said, "That would be wonderful. And I will bring you a bowl of soup and a couple egg rolls when I come
Yeah.
out. Deal?" He said, "Deal." And that's exactly what I did. And my friends looked at me and said, "You just talked to everybody." I said, "Yes, I talk to everybody."
Yeah.
And he knows I'm approachable, so he could approach me and not be angry. He's angry because people treat him like garbage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, he has issues, but he's coming to the table angry. You coming in like a bull in a china shop, and people are going to do this. They're going
Oh,
to shy
yeah.
away. They're not going to approach you, and then you're going to complain that you don't have friends.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously here.
Yep.
So you get what you give. And how often do we start our day saying that to ourselves?
Yeah.
You know, it's really a great conversation if you want to talk to yourself. And I talk to myself often. So there you go. Um, what do I need to pay attention to? How do I need to honor everyone that comes, you know, across my path today?
Yep.
So now I go in, and Ray, it was so funny, you know, when we first got together, I'd been in this house for years before he moved in with me because he's, you know, my second husband. And what was so funny was he says, everyone knows you, and you know the mailman by name, you know the pharmacist by name. I said, yep, I have a relationship with every single person in this neighborhood. He's never seen anything like that.
Yeah. You know, the difference though is what in your use of the word relationship, which I really like, and I want to make sure our audience hears that, is that we talk, or I talk a lot about connection, and you can connect with somebody, have a conversation, and just all surface, right? But you
Yeah,
use the word relationship intentionally because you do have a relationship with the mailman, the pharmacist, the people, your neighbors. And that takes intentional thought and investment in those individuals to create that. And when you do, much like what I'm working on right now in this course, is when you do that, it is a game changer. Exactly like what we started with, which is you get what you give, right? You know, that intention there is if that's somebody that you know you'll see every day who's going to bring you your mail or is going to fill your prescriptions or is going to give you your coffee at the coffee shop, why in the heck would you not make the effort to let them know how much they are appreciated and what you think of them? And it isn't by, hey, you're doing a good job, thanks for bringing the mail. They do that anyway, or handing me my latte. It's, you do such a great job, and I love coming here every day because I like your smile. I like how just excited and enthusiastic you are. You light me, you light up my day, right? That
yeah,
will change everything for someone. Much like the homeless person that you were talking about. Somebody sees him for who he is, right? Maybe he's not perfect and maybe there are issues, but in that moment, in that time, that was the biggest ripple you could potentially create and likely was a game changer for him.
I remember that because it meant a lot to me. It might
Sure.
have meant a lot to him, but it meant a lot to me. And you talk about the barista at the coffee shop. First of all, if I don't have coffee, you might as well kill me now,
We
because
don't record. That's the
a day without coffee,
It's like, whoa,
forget it.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
My
Hey,
whole
Donna, go
family's
get your
like that.
coffee.
We love the smell, the taste. We get good coffee. We don't get coffee just because it's coffee, kind of thing. And I always tell the barista, this is going to be a perfect moment for me to savor my coffee, do a little bit journaling, and know that you are starting it off by giving me a brew that's going to be a memorable brew. And they always crack up, and they want to know, what am I writing about, or whatever, because I usually come in with a journal. When I was working in Washington, D.C., the other capital, at the Department of the U.S. Treasury, I would go to the Starbucks just down the street. It was like four doors down from the Treasury, and I'd only go maybe once every 2 weeks. I'd be in Washington to do some in-person work, and walk in one day, and the barista looks at me, and there's a lineup from here to eternity because everyone there could be five Starbucks in like one city block, but everybody
Yeah.
has their favorites, right? And I walked in, and she said, "Where have you been?" And I said to her, "Why?" She said, "You're the only one that talks to me. And there's a lineup like out the door." So I said, "I don't live here. I live in Ottawa, Canada. I'm just here to do some work, for the day. And when I'm here, I come here for my coffee because you do such a good job giving me a great cup of coffee." And I would always buy one for the security guard in the building because I had made a
Yeah.
connection with him as well, teasing him to death about the difference between Canadian and US government buildings and how they're guarded. That's a whole other story. So she said to me, "I thought you were local and that you found another Starbucks that you like better." And I said, "No way. As long as I'm coming to Washington, you will be
This is it.
seeing me." And thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
Just think about it. How many people did she see every single day? And
Yeah.
she remembered me. There's a reason for that. It's not the red hair. It's the fact that I actually talked to her, because I could be a jerk and she'd look at the redhead coming in as the jerk.
Yep.
So, that's not necessarily a draw. So, ask yourself, this is to our listeners, when you go into a store, grocery store, coffee shop, drugstore, whatever, do you actually speak to the people that hand you your coffee or your prescription, or actually your bags of groceries when they're done being packed, and thank them and wish them a good day, and have any kind of interaction with them at
Yeah.
all? It will make a difference in their day, which will make a difference in the next person that comes through.
And it'll make a difference in your day because you'll know
Yes.
you've done it. I always tell people, we all have these opportunities to create a positive impact in people's lives every single day. These opportunities to create ripples are there for the taking. But if we're not looking for them, we're not intentional about it. If we don't have the attitude when we go out there into the world that we want to do these things, we won't. And then we wonder why, the world is the way the world is, right? So, but when you do it, if you lay your head at the end of the day, if you lay your head on your pillow and you go through your day and say, did I make an impact at least in one person's life? And seems so inconsequential to to thank them for that service or to recognize them for what they're doing or to pay them that compliment. It takes no time in your day to do it, but that could be like your barista, the only positive reinforcement they get that they're doing a good job throughout that day, or at least until you come back to DC. How important is that to them, right? You had mentioned from the mindfulness perspective, you had something you wanted to share with the listeners. Was that it? I just want to make sure we clarify on that.
Oh, yeah. It was a different experiment I did, because I was working on mindfulness, and I wanted to see how contagious it was. And it speaks to this in many ways. And I went to a movie with a friend of mine from high school who really doesn't pay attention to anybody. She's as unmindful as you could come, as they could get. And we're walking from the movie theater to a restaurant to have a bite afterwards. And people were doing the opposite. It depended when people wanted to go out for dinner before or after the movie, because they're right next to each other. So as we're walking towards the restaurant, a lot of people are walking towards the theater for the next movie. And so as I'm talking to her, walking, I would look at these people right in the eye, and I'd nod and I'd smile, but I would still be having my conversation with my friend. And some people would literally stop dead in their tracks and look at me like, do I know her from somewhere? It was just so funny. And I wouldn't, break the flow of conversation with my friend. And I would just nod and smile, and keep on going. So I wouldn't stop, and they would just keep on going after that. Walk into the restaurant, and immediately I see one of the servers, and he looks at me and he nods, and I nod back, and I said, "You have a smile on your face. What's going on?" He said, "I just graduated. Today's my last day of school, and now it's embarking on a career. So what are
Nice.
you going to do?" And I started talking to him, and she looks at me. She goes, "All these people are stopping and nodding at you as we're walking to the restaurant. The server comes right over where everybody else is waving to try to get his attention, comes right to you, totally ignores me. Like, what's going on?" And I looked at her. I said, "You get what you give.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
You aren't." That's
Yep.
the difference. And people will be attracted, and it's like a magnet. They'll come to you because they know you're truly interested. You're not interested in order to get the server over to give your order. You're interested in this person as a human being, and they sense it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge value to do it, and it is a rewarding experience to to not only give it, but you'll get it back. And that is what is the most impressive thing. I think when you look at these actions and then you start to see, much like your friend acknowledging what you were doing, you already know it because this is how this is how you are in the world. But it those are the moments that really make all the difference, not only for the person you do it for, but also for yourself. And it really does buoy your confidence. It creates more positive mojo and momentum. And like I always tell my audience, like those ripples, they ripple back to you always.
That's
So
right.
it's such a powerful, powerful thing. Well, I'm very excited to hear what our audience thinks of this particular episode. This one ran a little bit longer than our normal one, but there's so much good stuff packed into this. I'm curious as to what anybody might think about what we've shared, or if they have a story that they might like to give, because everybody has had this experience where somebody has unexpectedly done something to recognize them or to do something significant for them. We'd love to hear, how did you respond? How did you react? How did you continue to keep that momentum up and pay that forward in some capacity? So, Donna, how could people let us know, what they thought of this episode and share some of those stories with us?
Oh, definitely join our Facebook group because that's where everything's posted from day one. And join the conversation. Share your thoughts. We will answer and we will read them. And we are interested in what you have to say and what you have to share. And if you share a story that might stimulate a different conversation, let us know that too, because
Yep,
we're happy to bring that, to our show to discuss. And we will be very grateful to you for sharing with us.
absolutely.
So definitely, it's Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper. Join the group, our YouTube group as well. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. And if you get an opportunity and someone that would really benefit from hearing what these episodes are all about, these conversations, some of these really interesting topics and questions that we put on the table for discussion, please share it, right? Let them know that
Yeah,
they can, listen to our episodes on all the podcast platforms for audio. And they can, of course, like Donna said, find us on Facebook and then also on YouTube. So we encourage you to subscribe and be a part of that as well. You'll get notified when we drop a new episode, which happens every week. So, Donna, this has been a good one. Thank you so much for the time. I look forward to our next episode of Inquiring Minds. But until then, take care.
you too.